Right. Yeah, it's true. My job's changed a little.
I bet.
I think, David Barrows, I think what we should do is as these meetings progress, just for entertainment, you should start to slowly trim your beard back, and I should just grow mine out, and we should just basically switch faces over the next several months.
I love it.
It's like, just so, and then put our heads right over each other on the screen there. Just to provide some entertainment for the public. Not only are we a select board, but we're also, bringing them some comedy.
Yeah, the only trouble with that, we'd have to be careful. I haven't shaved in 39 years.
Wow, you forgot how to do it. That's why you get a little trimmer. You just take off like a quarter inch each time. You just do it because mine's not going to grow that fast.
Mine seems to grow very fast. Either that or I'm just getting older that much faster.
Well, I'd have to fill in the front here too, because I tend to, I get like the Amish beard where it doesn't I don't get the front, my chin doesn't grow. So I'd have to tape that on.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock on the nose, everyone. And I think we'll get started. I definitely appreciate all of you taking the time this evening to convene again. I just missed y'all so much. Well, no, actually, before we get going, let's see, Josh, would you read the quote of the evening?
Sure. They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself. Andy Warhol.
Thank you very much. And I would like to remind everyone participating, whether you're watching or on the board, that during this state of emergency is declared by the governor, this Board of Selectmen, subject to the Maine Freedom of Access Act, is allowed to conduct this meeting via Zoom. And so any action taken by the board will need to be done via roll call, including adjournment. Does anybody have any questions? Not seeing any questions. We'll move along to the Citizens Forum. David, do we have any participants for the Citizens Forum?
We had nothing submitted via email, and I see nothing in the chat as now.
Okay, great. Well, then let's get going. David and I were having a conversation last week, and knowing that we were going to have a conversation regarding what we're going to do with regards to town meeting and the restrictions that are being placed upon us in terms of quantity of people that can meet in any given space. And so, David, can I hand it over to you to give a synopsis of what we're looking at?
Sure. We're currently limited to public gatherings of no more than 10 people. Obviously, if we have a town meeting, we're likely to have more than 10 people show up. And that limit is right now planned to last through the month of May. And then it looks as though all guidance being offered, it hasn't been changed via order yet, that even if things go as expected in our recovery, that large gatherings will be limited to no more than 50 people. We have even outside gatherings. We have what? We have no control over the number of people that can attend a town meeting. Not only are town meetings open to all registered voters of the town, there being about 1,800 of those, It's also open to the general public to watch and observe, or people that aren't even registered to vote. If you wanted to bring your children or neighbors' kids or something, that's certainly available as well. Which puts us in a little bit of a conundrum. We currently, by town charter, are supposed to be sending out, doing tax commitment and sending out bills in the month of August. And no order has yet postponed that. The board, I suppose, could choose to ignore it, but I wouldn't advise it for cash flow purposes, because we need money coming in too to run municipal operations, which kind of leaves us in a little bit of a lurch in terms of what options are available to the board. There's always the option that something may break in Augusta, but I wouldn't bank on it or plan on it at this point. We're kind of all at the mercy of whatever occurs with the virus. So the two options as I see it right now is one, if the town fails to pass the budget, or if we don't have a town meeting, the current municipal budget is deemed approved. So what we have in the current year could be utilized in the coming budget year. The budget, as the selectmen had put forward back in mid-March, sought to change what was required from taxpayers, actually sought a lower amount from taxpayers, as well as had some priorities set in the budget for items you wish to do that wouldn't be available to the board should the budget not be approved, as well as some things that we'd actually raise money for that we've already done once and wouldn't be looking to do again. So that doesn't seem like a real good option to me, but it is an option for the board to consider. The other would be to move to rather than have an open town meeting where things come up, or we get together in a group and vote from the floor, would be to do the entire town meeting via referendum ballot or ballots, where people could obtain the appropriate number of ballots either on election day or in advance via absentee, complete those, submit them, and they'd be counted. So those are kind of the two available options to the board at this point. We don't have a whole lot of money. We haven't appropriated, well, we have some money appropriated for local elections because we were going to conduct a candidate election in a single ballot referendum question in June. You're likely, if we move to referendum, have multiple ballots that a voter would receive. But we'll adjust if that's what the board wishes to do. So I think I hit the highlights with that. Happy to answer any questions on those.
So basically, the intent being, since the law provides for it, that if we go the referendum route, that the idea is to try to get as much of it done absentee as possible.
Well, certainly make that available. There are people, obviously, the full spectrum exists out there based on the phone calls and conversations I've had with people, from some people that think what's going on is completely ridiculous to others that quite literally haven't left their house in about 6 weeks.
The full range.
Yeah. And, trying to find that middle ground that can satisfy everyone and still accomplish the business of the town is kind of where I'm at.
Is going the route of the, since you can't control the number of people that come to the voting station, and since there's, would, for some concern for the people that would lean, toward that level of concern of, staying home all the time, you know, the idea of going in there and, you know, sharing the ballot booths and everything with traffic. And I mean, is that, I'm not saying, I think the referendum is probably the better way to go too, as recommended, but I'm just wondering about the, you know, that exposure. Is it gonna, you know, is it gonna favor the people who think the whole thing is a hoax as opposed to the people who are very cautious and worried?
Well, I don't think it necessarily favors one person over another. One of the things that Laidley and I discussed, and we talked about a little bit somewhere in the newsletter, was about the possibility of actually doing some sort of mailer so people could know what was going on, what was being proposed, what wasn't being proposed, and why the board chose to move to a referendum. Absentee balloting is as simple as either, if we're open, coming into the town office and requesting. If people are still at home, calling the town office, and we'll mail you your ballots. You have to mail them
Right.
back
Well, I
or
guess you're right. I
drop them
guess if
off
that,
here.
yeah, so if that it exists, right, the option for everybody exists. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can either go to the gym or you can absentee if you're worried about it. So yeah, all right.
Correct. If we can get this all lined up and organized in the what's rapidly, believe it or not, becoming a short period of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the timeline that we're looking at in order to get the appropriate paperwork and fit within the constraints set upon us is basically a little over a week from now.
Wow. All right.
So yeah, in order for
Hence
us
the meeting.
yeah,
Mhm.
here we are.
All right.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear any other board members' thoughts or concerns.
I feel that people are, half are going to be good with it and half aren't. I think we just need to make what we feel is the right decision for this upcoming election and go with it. What we feel is best for the town.
At least the silver lining is lower taxes. Like, it's
Well, be careful how you say that, because you have to remember that tax bill is made up of three primary components. Municipal, which is what, 16 or 17% of your tax bill to begin with. County, which is another 13%, and then the remainder is the education budget. So you all and myself, besides being voters, don't get a whole lot of say in those other components.
yeah.
Well, I think this is pretty straightforward, frankly, that we should have the annual town meeting via referendum. There will certainly be people that will be very upset with this, but I think that for the sake of people's health and safety, this is what we have to do.
I agree with that. I think that we should go with a referendum vote. I'd much rather have an open town meeting, but if we did have it, we wouldn't have a turnout and we'd be breaking the law and all those good things. The only question I've got, is this gonna still be a July vote at this time, or is this gonna be a June vote? When are we trying to hit which date are we trying to hit with the written ballot?
We would be looking to do this in July when the state's primary is going on.
Okay.
So pretty much time frame wise, we'll be looking at the board hopefully approving or pretty close to approving a warrant at your next meeting, which is next week, so that we can get the articles to the printer so that the ballots can be printed and available 30 days prior to town meeting, so that we can hit the required deadlines for absentee voting. So we're going to be on a pretty close, tight time frame. The budget committee still needs to make their recommendations. They're actually going to have a meeting tomorrow evening via Zoom that we've got set up to go over the budget recommendations that the board's either already put forward, or if you make some changes later tonight. But that was a long answer to say July.
Yep.
Dave.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So, David, let's say we do vote to go this way with the referendum vote. What does this do for responsibilities at the town office, and would your town office help when it comes time for voting?
Well, prior to election day, I predict, I don't know, but I would predict that a number of people will want to vote via absentee. So that's going to increase what they need to do to get the ballots out and in the mail to the folks, and then log them back when they come back, because there is a process outlined in law for how you handle absentee ballots, in terms of sending out and receiving and logging them in. We are scheduled to process the state ballots that come back via absentee early, meaning we can run them through the machine as long as we follow the state's guidelines as to how we handle those. You don't get any results. They just go in the machine and get tabulated. Then they get the results after the polls close. For the municipal ballots, I'm not sure if we can follow that same procedure, if we just have to wait until the polls close and then run the ballots through the machine. But there's more logistical support that needs to be done here in the town office versus at elections. But I think some of the staff that's intimately involved with the elections would be more enthusiastic to do it absentee than have 1,000 people show up at the polls.
Sure.
Okay.
Much as we want people to vote, in this one, the less exposure people have to others, the more comfortable they seem to feel.
Sure.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Well, is anyone prepared to make a motion, or is there more conversation? It seems like we're all between a rock and a hard place, really, when it comes to this decision.
I move that in response to the current pandemic situation, that the annual town meeting be conducted solely via referendum ballot.
I'll
I'll
second
second
that.
that.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson and seconded by, I'll give it to Selectman Barrows. And is there any discussion? Seeing no one jumping up and down, let's run down the roster. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, yes. That passes. So as David brought up, the next agenda item I asked him to put on this evening's discussion is, as the budget committee is finally able to get together to discuss our recommendations and their recommendations, I felt compelled to have us all have a conversation to review our decisions, given that the state of the world has changed so dramatically. And yeah, I am personally of the opinion that we have a number of places in the budget that we can offset some of the revenue shortfalls that we are going to be seeing both on a municipal level and a state level. So hopefully first I can get a nodding of everyone's heads that yes, we are interested in reviewing our prior recommendations. Okay.
By the way, there's I think a motion that we wanted to look at the previous agenda item.
Sorry?
There's a second motion, I think, that that we wanted to consider regarding educating the public.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I move it in advance of the annual town meeting that the town administrator prepare for board review and approval a town meeting document to explain to the voters why we are moving this year to an all referendum town meeting, along with an explanation of the articles that will be considered by the voters.
I'll second.
Motion by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? I would love for this template to become a template that could potentially get handed out also at open portion of town meetings going into the future. It's something that has always been on my list of things of wanting to have, and it falls off the priority list every single year, and there's no better opportunity now to have that issue be forced. So that being said, if there is no more discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. So as I was saying, I think as with any budget conversation, while I think we could get really cut happy and aggressive with places that could be decreased, I guess I would just, before we get into a conversation, I would caution any member of the select board to consider that maintaining certain core elements of our municipal program holds a lot of merit, where if we too severely cut this year, we're going to be dramatically hurting ourselves in the future in terms of the progress and the care and maintenance programs. You know, I'll use the roads as an example, that if we pull things back too far, we run the risk of not being able to catch back up. So finding that happy medium of ability to afford programs or not. So David, do you want to add anything in here?
Well, I think the most important thing to add is, since the board acted on original budget in March 23rd, I believe, things have gotten clearer yet hazier all in once, if that's possible. Certainly some of the anticipated revenues are likely to be substantially impacted, even though we made a change, or the board made a change at the last meeting. There's word that the local road assistance program, which is money that comes from the state to assist in local roads, primarily, I think it originated with money to help plow some of the state roads, and then morphed into more capital for local roads. No one is able to provide us with information as to what the change is going to be, but it seems likely that that's going to change, as some of that money comes from Maine Department of Transportation, and they're being a lot of their money comes from the gas tax money. People aren't driving as much, aren't going as far. If revenue is going to be down, I am sure as I'm sitting here, somebody in Augusta is trying to figure out how they can tap into that pool of money that comes to towns, kind of on that shared sacrifice idea again. I've suggested, we had budgeted at 48,400 to that. I've suggested a 20% reduction, down to 36,300. And actually, I guess I can't do math. That's a 25% reduction, but it just seems like the prudent thing to do. If we don't do it and we come up short, we'll come up short and we'll have to make some midstream adjustment, spend money. If we do make the change, more money comes in, then it'll be available to you folks and the taxpayers in future years to, you know, expend on something else or lower taxes. So that was one. The other is revenue sharing. The board at the last meeting did reduce revenue sharing by $50,000. That looks like that was a prudent move and maybe not enough. Nobody really knows with that crystal ball what's going to happen with income taxes and sales tax, but all indications are the recovery is going to take longer than may have been initially forecasted. So I've recommended another reduction in that in the amount of $45,911, roughly taking what was originally planned or projected by the state to come to us and cut it in half. So your crystal ball is probably as good as mine, but been talking to other managers and administrators, and there's no clear guidance coming from Augusta, and everybody's doing the best they can. Once again, I'd rather be low on revenue estimates than high.
Well, I thought that your general, sorry, we have a spy. Hold on, come here. Hey, get out. I thought that your general point of leaning toward, you know, this shared sacrifice and then trying to make the most of the places, most of the cutbacks in areas of things that were on the wish list as opposed to things that we already had and were established and used to, but rather leaning toward trying to postpone, I don't know, I wouldn't call them luxury items necessarily, but postpone improvements as opposed to taking away already existing infrastructure.
The other, whoops.
And it does lean there, and yeah, anyway, it's
the other part of this on the revenue side, I haven't got into any of the suggested expenditure changes yet, but on the revenue side is if something, I won't say miraculous, but if things turned out to be better than anticipated, both in terms of revenues, if there was a priority of the board that came up mid-year and we could actually have a town meeting, you could call a special town meeting and appropriate funds from, you know, revenues that were coming in. You can't go back and have another town meeting after taxes are committed and tax people more. You get one shot at that.
right.
But if you have other sources of revenue that are coming in mid-year, you can go to town meeting and say, hey, look, we got an extra $5,000, let's say, or $10,000 in local road assistance money. Can we expend that on fixing another road or a road project? And as long as they said yes, you'd be okay. So that's, you know, there's fail safes in both directions.
Yeah, it seems well thought out.
So as such, while we're having a conversation about revenue sharing, can I have a first motion, please, which will adjust the revenues and offsets?
I move that the board amend its recommendation for the fiscal year 21 municipal budget revenues and offsets to a total of $1,244,300 by amending local road assistance to $36,300 and municipal revenue sharing to $193,000 while leaving the remaining recommendations unchanged.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, yes, motion passes. Thank you very much. And so does everyone have a copy of your budget or a general? We can work through it too, as if you don't have the copy in front of you.
Let me grab my copy. I'll bring it back.
Okay, great.
All right, you're gonna have to leave. Go on. Oh wait, I thought that was my budget. It's not my budget. I have mine right over here.
Oh, did Selectman Fishman go to get his?
You
I
did.
just, well, I'm like 10 feet away. I just, and it's not where it was. Let's see.
While we're having this little musical interlude, I've got a couple of you I need to track down for some signatures and get your packets back so we can do your packet. I'll be in touch.
Okay,
I do not have my current copy. I don't know.
that's okay.
binder.
If something comes up for you, John, just don't hesitate to interrupt to ask if you're unclear on any
Okay.
department. So the following various departments, David put in a number of suggestions that we talked about. We essentially, as I understand it, David, and please correct me if I'm off here, is we need to shoot for, or I think we should shoot for cutting approximately $96,000.
Well, it really kind of depends on, your priorities in terms of policy as to what you want to accomplish. The original budget you'd proposed to the voters was $26,000 or $27,000 less than the current budget year. And we just cut out a fair amount of revenue, $58,000 in anticipated revenue. So as it stands right now, you're looking to ask taxpayers for more, which you certainly can do. But in light of some of the comments and circumstances that I think people are finding themselves in, it may not be the most prudent choice at this point. So I had, and I'm no, this is your document to advance what you think is most appropriate. I had put forth, as John had alluded to earlier, just some thoughts on trying to maintain the status quo in terms of services, because people don't seem to miss what they never had, I guess is the best way to put it. I think the improvements and some of the things that the board had proposed would have been just that, improvements. and, been good for the community. But the community is, or portions of the community certainly are suffering in the current circumstance, and we don't really know when that may change. So I looked through the budget for items that were new, niceties, or things that might have been or might be impacted by the pandemic situation that we find ourselves in, that we may not need that much money for. So that's kind of the focus of where I'd looked, but all of it's fair game for you folks.
Yeah, and the conversation that David Kinney and I had last week, when I asked him to put this on our conversation, is I firmly believe that we all did a very good job of putting forward a responsible budget for our municipality at that time. And now I feel like we have the opportunity as the leaders, the elected representatives in our community, to really embody that concept of shared sacrifice, which means certain people, certain groups will be disappointed likely by some of the recommendations that we are going to put forward. And ultimately it is up to our voting body what they decide, but we have a good opportunity here to lead by example, and in our positions of having to think of everyone living in our town to make responsible choices there. So starting on page 4, which is administration and finance, I will make the recommendation that we don't make any changes there unless anyone has any insight or thought. And seeing no one jumping up and down, let's move along to page 6, which is protection animal control. And I also feel that that should remain the same. And on page 7, parking enforcement. This is an area of the budget that we have been tweaking last couple budget cycles in an effort to make the position more attractive. We had adjusted the number, considering the fact that likely person-to-person management and parking isn't necessarily going to be as much of a priority. I would recommend a budget reduction there. And I'd like to hear individuals' thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that made sense to me.
I'd agree
Never
with
really
that.
read that.
Would someone care to make a motion?
I move that the board amend as the recommended amount for parking enforcement to $2,412.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Barrows, seconded by Selectman Fishman. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you. The motion passes. Moving along to the next page, page 8, Protection Fire Department. I recommend no changes. Any thoughts there? Seeing none, we'll move along. Page 9 is explanation. Page 10, protection other. Does anyone have any thoughts there?
Just that's all that, we're getting into all the essential services there. That seems like the kind of stuff that.
Yeah, I would say that with the exception that we in a conversation with our EMA director, he had initially recommended 4 barriers. We upped it to 6 barriers. And so considering the forecast for the economic climate we're going to be in, I would make the recommendation to eliminate 2 of those barriers and shave just a little bit off of that budget line.
Sure.
Would someone care
Yeah.
to make a motion?
I move that the board amend the recommended amount for protection other to 133,227 by eliminating 2 of the 6 portable barriers.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. The motion passes. Thank you. And moving along to town office building. We had a conversation about adding water detection, low temp alarm. And I know it's a security and safety conversation. So I just wanted to open it up to the group to see where your thoughts lay with reducing the budget by $500 there.
This one, I don't think I'm inclined to support, just because of how catastrophic the damage could be overnight if a water pipe broke. It's a new building, so I don't know how likely that is, but part of it's new. But for
Yeah.
$500, it seems like we should still move ahead with this.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, my other thought, just devil's advocate, would be, well, at least we're coming into the warm weather, and maybe that's one of those things that if the revenue recovers to some degree, that's one of the things you prioritize to ask people to put back. But this could also easily get into the cold weather again. I mean, that's only another 6 months away or whatever, we're not that far back to the cold weather. So, I mean, it could be, and then if the revenues don't recover, then you're going into a cold season with, and then what Josh is saying is, I think, yeah, I don't think that, I guess if I would lean toward what Josh is saying there.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I could go either way on that. I would go along with doing away with it, but I go along with keeping it too. See what other people's feelings are.
I feel that should remain on the budget. I'm absolutely shocked it wasn't there at the beginning. It's to protect town records, town infrastructure.
Yeah.
It can happen at the drop of a hat. Something could go wrong. It could be a storm. It could be a broken pipe. It could be many things. I think that just should be SOP. It should be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So it doesn't sound like anyone's going to be inclined to make a motion to alter that particular department. Great. Let's move along to page 12, contingency. There is a suggestion to increase the contingency given the fact that we are moving into dark, murky, and uncharted waters here ahead of us. And while I know that I have been emphasizing reduction, this is potentially an insurance policy for us.
Well, and it sort of goes along with the same reasoning as why to keep the $500 in for the cold water, for the office. It's sort of, they're sort of part and parcel in a way. I would support that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
No, I agree with John on that. I would support raising that.
Okay, does anyone care to make a motion?
I move that the board amend the recommended amount for contingency to $25,000.
I'll
Second,
second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Fishman. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Page 13, we have code enforcement. I don't recommend any changes there. Any contradiction there? Seeing none. Page 14, assessing. I would not recommend making any alterations there. Moving along, page 15, highways and bridges. Per the conversation of keeping certain things rolling, page 15 is highways and bridges. I wouldn't make any recommendations there. Page 16, transfer station. That's just one of those pages we get to look back and admire. So let's keep moving along. Page 17, Public Works Harbor. I wouldn't recommend any changes there unless, and please speak up if I'm going too quickly. Page 18, Public Works Other. Does anyone have any recommendations?
Larry, I'm sorry to back up. I don't actually have it because I didn't print it out. I only have it on my
Yep.
screen, but I recall when I was reading the Harbor one, I don't, maybe it was under a different category, but wasn't there there was some discussion for possibly postponing the pedestrian roofed area, and a little bit of possibly postponing some of those improvements. Not
We have a number, we have a couple budget lines under capital improvements, which we haven't gotten to yet.
okay, it's under there. Okay, sorry.
So yeah, but in case anyone at home is wondering, what we have contained within the Public Works Harbor is the harbor master, assistant harbor master, and inland harbor master stipends, the FICA and Medicare associated with that, the pier winch, pier repair, annual pier repair and maintenance, the electricity, are the annual memberships that our harbor masters are obligated to hold, and then there's another line in there from previous fiscal year of the wave break survey, which
So that's all
is zero.
established infrastructure.
Yep. No, it's a good point though.
Yeah, I just didn't know
Um,
which category it was under.
Sure. So jumping back to page 18, Public Works Other, I certainly have some recommendations in there. This contains McGonagall Dams, Breezemere Park maintenance, Lincolnville Beach, Veterans Park, septic disposal, athletic fields, athletic infrastructure maintenance, and Duck Trap Beach. So we had a lot of conversations about Breezemere Park, and I certainly feel that we can reduce at least $2,800 by eliminating the brand new grills, the new trash receptacles, and the additional swim buoys. We have already several swim buoys. We do have grills. They're old, but not top of the priority list, I don't feel. And we do have our standard trash receptacles. So I think we can shave some dollars off there. And I don't know if there's anywhere else that anyone sees some additional dollars that could be saved.
Those all make sense to me.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, summer is going to be curtailed significantly, so I don't know if people would even use these new additions this year.
It's kind of like the parking thing, you know, you're gonna have less traffic anyway, so.
Okay, would someone care to make a motion then?
I move that the board amend the recommended amount for public works other to $43,332 by eliminating the additional swim buoys, barbecue grills, and the trash receptacle.
Second,
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Fishman. Is there any discussion?
I do have something.
Yep.
The contracted maintenance, could you refresh my memory on that? Is that what someone said was a good number for drainage?
No, that's what we got from sports fields.
Okay,
That-
so where's the number for?
Capital,
Drainage? In,
Yeah,
under capital improvements,
Oh, okay.
athletic fields,
yeah, we
infrastructure.
haven't gotten there quite yet.
okay.
Is there any more discussion?
No, thank you.
Okay, seeing no more discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
yes,
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Thank you very much. And page 19 is boards and committees. I don't see a lot of wiggle room there. Unless someone has another suggestion. We'll move along to page 20, municipal support. Does anyone have any recommendations there? Okay. Moving along. Page 21 is further explanation, so we'll jump over that. Provider agencies, any comments or changes there? Okay, page 23, here we are at capital improvement programs, which we should definitely take a look at. First and foremost, I think we could peel back the fire truck fund slightly. This is a multi-year planning process. So I think by taking it back just a little, not completely, hopefully won't hurt us terribly in the future, but it will certainly help in the near term.
but there should be plenty of time for opportunity to make up lost ground in the future, because it's, what is it, a 5-year thing?
5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we don't have a chance in the next 5 to 7 years to put that back, then we have bigger
Hopefully.
problems.
Yeah, hopefully. Also, Harbour Improvements. I don't remember if it was Selectman Late or Garrettson that brought it up. But I think we could shave about $30,000 off of that line. Oh, Selectman Fishman, sorry, it was your.
Yeah, yeah.
The walkway and I think leaving in that account, or our recommendation to the voters, to continue to replace aging out key pieces of infrastructure,
Yeah.
I think is essential. I think we have been in the habit of setting aside monies for road improvements, so that when we have a road in town that really needs to be rebuilt, we're not taking such a big financial hit. So I think while we should still save for those future projects, I think we can reduce that by about $50,000. And I think we can also reduce the building repair fund. I would recommend that we reduce the monies we set aside for the solar array purchase. Same principle as the fire truck fund conversation. You know, I think it's good to save some money for that inevitable expenditure we're going to have to make, but it doesn't have to be as big of a chunk. I'm also going to recommend to you all to consider reducing the athletic field infrastructure amount ever so slightly to reduce the monies we would have set aside for the tennis court resurfacing. And then I'm going to recommend that we postpone our project of the sidewalk going from the library through the Veterans Park. While I think it is a project that holds a lot of merit, considering we're entering times where we all need to tighten our belt, I think it's something that we should hold as a priority for the future and not necessarily for this fiscal year. And I'll take any other recommendations that any of you see within capital improvement.
Okay. Can I speak to the ones that you've just listed off?
Yep.
At this time, or do you just want more suggestions?
No, just go for it. It's open to.
Okay. The fire truck fund, I always, we need our fire department, and we need them to be there when we need them. I always get tentative with a reduction because I feel they come to us with a very sharp pencil. So with that being said, I will go with what the board decides on that, but I'm hesitant to reduce that one. The harbor improvements, that's our infrastructure, and the another piece of our infrastructure, and we didn't do we didn't carry the new pier decking all the way up the ramp, so I don't know if that was a consideration here or not, but I know we've worked really hard to make decisions about the harbor and what we're doing down there. So I just that's quite a chunk. It's $32,500. So I'm a little concerned about that. The road improvement, we've been behind on our roads before, and I know this sounds like I don't want to save any money here by reducing anything, but I know we've been behind on our roads before. And I want to make sure that all of the other selectmen know that once you get behind, it's tough to get back where we are. Building repair, I'm good with that. The solar array, I'm good with. The athletic field infrastructure, I'm good with that. And the Main Street sidewalk, removing that, I'm good with that.
I just would like to clarify, Kern, that we're not talking about, so we're leaving all of those departments, their budget untouched. This is money we're putting aside for the future. This is a savings account. This is you could think of it as a mutual fund. And so my suggestion would be to still ask the voters to save $20,000 towards the fire truck, $20,000. This is in addition to. So definitely not eliminating those programs or walking back the current operating budget. So what we have worked through thus far with the departments is that we are holding their current, well, the proposed next fiscal year operating budget as we have recommended. And so this is the savings account. This is our ability. And
Okay.
so I wouldn't want anyone to think
Understood.
that we were devaluing the fire department. This would just more, rather than getting to buy the truck for sure in 4 years, it may be 5 years. So I just want to clarify that this isn't a deficit. We're not asking
Yeah.
these folks to work with less.
Just saving the money slower for the things that need to be bought later.
Right.
Yeah, and then that's the same for the pedestrian walkway thing, and that's more of a thing that would have been being budgeted and worked on this year, or was that also a savings for the future thing?
That would have been a new budget line. That would be a new project that we were tackling. And I guess I just want to remind everyone that I think we were all feeling pretty good when we were looking at a reduced budget. And so I think that was giving us all a sense of confidence in terms of having more wiggle room to work with, is that if we're looking at our budget last fiscal year was below the previous fiscal year, and we were looking at a reduction from that number. So I think we did a very good job of continuing to keep our taxpayers' ability, or the amount that we're asking our taxpayers to contribute to run the town. And so now, given the fact that we were looking at that reduction and having a little bit of wiggle room to still put forward a reduced budget and tackle some of these great projects, and now that reality is completely changed. And so the question we really need to ask ourselves is, given the fact that we are facing massively decreased revenues, do we still want to then, so now instead of, us having a reduced budget and having that wiggle room and all of these projects, do we feel comfortable holding these projects or contributing to the savings account, knowing that it's going to put our taxpayers above that mark? And I personally don't. I think that any new project like that worth merit isn't going to lose its enthusiasm. And so I fully anticipate it being part of the conversation for next year's budget. And if it loses steam, then perhaps it didn't have the same importance that it did. So anyone else, areas where they feel things could be reduced, or a different proposed number that seems better?
Just one other thing, the fire station security, eliminate the proposed fire, water, and intrusion system. I feel that should stay.
Yeah, I'm kind of inclined to lean that way too. It's sort of like the the sensor for the town office. It just seems like
the fire department should have a fire alarm.
Yeah, see.
I didn't want to have to say it out loud, but thanks for bringing it up, Kurt.
I think the theory on that is the fire department was sprinkled, so they didn't think they needed it. And, I think water can do a lot of damage real quick, and having a building sprinkled is the best you can get, but it can also be the worst. It can do a lot of damage really quick.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So that being said, first, are there any other comments, questions, concerns?
I can support what you're all saying, including keeping the fire station security. My hope is that, hopefully by next summer, 2021, we just have a better understanding of the economic landscape and
For sure.
what this means for the
Absolutely.
residents of Lincolnville and for our state and country. And hopefully, if people are doing okay, then we could potentially fund these projects, not only at the numbers we were originally going to this year, but maybe even an additional amount to make up for the shortfall that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, certainly. I have always been impressed at Lincolnville's ability to provide high quality services for not a lot of money. I mean, if you look at what our budget really holds and what we are able to offer our citizens, I think it's impressive. And I think part of it is due to consistent, thoughtful financial management. And yeah, I agree with you, Josh. I hope that this is not going to become the pattern for the next couple of fiscal years, and that it is a little blip where we all tighten our belts and get through this. And I certainly hope that these reductions are just that, is, it's us putting on our life jacket to get through this particular little storm, and then we get to go about business as usual. So that being said, can I have a motion, please?
I move that the board amend the recommended amount for the capital improvement plan to $123,750 as follows.
David Kinney is waving his hand.
Yeah,
What's up?
fire truck or the alarm.
If you wanted to
Oh,
keep the station security alarm in there, that number should be 132,750, and then add that to the bottom of the list you're about to read.
okay. So I strike that.
Never happened.
My amended motion is that I move that the board amend the recommended amount for the capital improvement plan to $132,750 as follows. Fire station security, $9,000. Fire truck fund, $20,000. Harbor improvements, $20,000. Road improvement, $50,000. Building repair fund, $10,000. Solar array purchase, $10,250. Athletic field infrastructure, $13,500.
A second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there discussion? I certainly appreciate all of your willingness to have this conversation, so thank you. I think it's the right thing to do.
It is. I think it is too.
Certainly agree.
It's prudent in the situation.
Yeah.
And I like what Josh said earlier, which is by by this time next year, the landscape probably will be a lot clearer. So this is a good, prudent thing to do now.
Yep. Thank you all. If there's no more discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Are there any more comments on the budget? That is, yes.
Diligently working on an article regarding the possible land exchange with coastal mountains. And obviously, there will be some budget impacts to that, that I hope to have before you next meeting. I guess my suggestion at this point will be, or there's two methods to fund any work that might go on down there. One would be, again, a budget adjustment to raised from taxes. The other would be to transfer from unassigned fund balance. And I think the number is probably manageable from unassigned fund balance. So we wouldn't be impacting the property taxpayers in the upcoming year. And I was just going to try to get a little bit of guidance if that seemed prudent without having a dollar number. I know that's hard, but if that was which way the kind of the board was leaning, whether or not you'd want to adjust the budget upwards and pay for it out, in essence, out of savings, or adjust it upwards and pay for it out of property taxes.
Well, I would certainly hope that Coastal Mountains Land Trust can come through on their repeated offer of finding sources for funding or grant or that sort of thing that would help get the ball rolling. I would like to not have our taxpayers immediately hit with this burden. I think whatever we plan on doing should be minimal.
Yeah. I think we need to not plan for the worst, but come close to planning for the worst and hoping for the best while we search out some grant funds out there. But we at least, or as a minimum, we have to mow the grass down there when and if it becomes ours, or otherwise it's going to become wild soon. I guess.
Yep.
I should have more for you come Monday, but I just wanted to bring that out because that's something that isn't addressed in this budget, but needs to be somehow.
Are you going to have somebody take a look at it, maybe to try to give you a number as to how much it's going to cost?
Or a couple of somebody's. We have some, and it may turn out to be more of a phase thing over time, but there's certainly some things that really need to be done before you'd even want to open up to allow the public to do a whole lot of anything. Okay. And then there's the ongoing maintenance things, and you know, we the board and the community probably needs to have some sort of discussion about, you know, what facilities we might like to open down there, but we certainly could do a minimal expense and get it open and available to the public, and then over time figure out how we're going to roll out some of these other little more niceties there that already exist, but might cost a little bit more to bring back into shape.
Okay.
All right, more next week.
Great.
Or on Monday. I'm leaning towards just so it has no immediate impact on taxes, to suggest that maybe the funds come out of unassigned fund balance.
Yeah. Let's start there.
Okay.
Is there any more business the board wishes to conduct? Again, a sincere thank you to all of you for having this conversation tonight. Hopefully it will encourage some healthy dialogue for the budget committee as they jump into their final review. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Selectman Barrow's motion, Selectman Fishman seconded. Selectman, if there's no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Fishman, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.